school. I got a lead this year, and yeah, that's mostly it. I live at home with my two brothers and parents, and I've loved school my whole life. It was really disappointing to me to have that taken away yesterday.
An unbelievable day for you. Have you ever had anything like it?
No.
Grace, you're 16 years old. You attend Laramie High School.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you had any other desire for any other school or any other type of education back in April? What grade were you in April?
I was in 10th grade.
10th grade. So you are 11th grade now. And your academic record is impressive. Make all kinds of parents proud to call you theirs. And you, in 2020, COVID strikes America. Essentially March 11th is a date that comes to mind when I think about Rodeo Houston canceling in Texas and so many other things, a rolling wave throughout America where we didn't know what it was about. I mean, I remember masking up diligently for 8 to 16 weeks in March as we didn't know what we had. Roll back in your memory and tell me what the end of school, what was the outbreak of coronavirus like for you as a student attending school in Albany County School District?
Let's see, when everything first closed down, I was a freshman, so I got half of my freshman year taken away, which was just interesting and weird to me because high school was new. And then it really hit me sophomore year last year because we had the hybrid schedule where I could only go to school 2 days a week, and it was really difficult to try to find time to do the things I loved, and as soon as it started affecting my grades and my school career and the things I loved doing, that's when I realized that I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to fight it because it started to become a ridiculous thing that they were asking us to do. They were continuing to ask us to do something that wasn't helping the situation. It was obvious that masks were not the answer, because if masks were the answer, we would have been back in school at the end of my freshman year.
And for those listening that may not know, in our audience, you didn't attend classes at school. It was taken away from the school, and you were provided laptops or what have you, and you educated at your home or wherever. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So what was that? What was that like? What was that change like? What was that experience like? You recall?
It was new. We couldn't really go anywhere because everything was closed down. So
yeah,
every day was just equally as boring as the last, and we had nothing to do, just watching TV and hanging out with my brothers.
And summer vacation, right?
Yeah.
What was summer vacation like in 2020?
Oh, summer vacation was very boring. I don't think we did anything at all. We just stayed home, and that was really it.
No hunting, no fishing, no camping,
not really.
No tennis, no outdoor pickleball.
Yeah.
You did some fun things?
Yeah, we went outside a lot. We went camping, but it was new and different. One thing that we noticed was before COVID, Wyoming's mountains were actually pretty open and we got a lot of space, but as soon as COVID hit, every camping spot was filled.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. I remember rest areas were closed.
Yeah.
I remember rest areas on the state highways being closed, and what an impact that is to search and seek a restroom so that you can be human in the world. And without a doubt, I'm very, very taken by your situation. If we were able to describe your day this week or in the last few weeks, we're going to get to that in a few moments. Before we do, we have a gentleman to your left who helped bring you into this world. And I think it'd be great if you would introduce your father and share a little bit about how you feel about he and your family going through everything you're going through currently.
This is my dad, Andy Smith. He supported me every step of the way, and he's made it very, very prevalent to me that no matter what I choose to do, he's going to support me. And since I've chosen to take this route, he's done everything possible to make sure that I know that I'm loved, and that I know that no matter what, I still will be loved by every single family member, immediate and distant from me. And yeah, I made the decision to start this, and ever since day one, he has just done everything that I want, and every single day he asks me, what do you want to do? What's your next step? And then he takes it from there, and he supports me all the way and makes sure that everything is ready for me to take the next step.
A little bit of background for those listening on the radio and by Facebook this morning. Grace Smith has academic excellence, great smile, genuine friendly attitude. First time meeting you, Grace. I've watched several videos with you present in them. One of the most striking things is that you're a very attentive individual. In every one of those videos, I witnessed that you're respectfully listening. You're respectfully looking exactly in the direction without wander throughout the entirety. I mean, this has genuinely happened to you, but as you say, it's not induced by anyone else. No one else put this into your head. So in 2020, roll back to 2020, did you wear masks in March, April, before doing schooling at home?
No, let's see, in 2020, no, I did not really.
Okay, all right. Did anyone speak to you at that time about their concern for your safety and your wellness and
no,
that kind of thing?
Really.
Was there a mask mandate in Albany County School District when coronavirus launched?
No, not in the beginning of 2020, no. We just
not in January, but in March, April. I don't remember when school exited, into the home.
Before school exited, no, they did not require anything, and then they just sent us home.
Okay.
After spring break, and then beginning of the school year in September, August of 2020, that's when they started requiring masks.
Okay.
For the school.
How'd you feel about the requirement of a mask? Not only for yourself, but for those around you?
At first, I was open to it. I was a little frustrated because it had just been so ongoing, but because it's still been new, I felt like I hadn't been educated enough on the coronavirus itself to understand how useless the masks actually were, and the way they presented it to us as the students was that we're just going to try this. We're going to see if it works because we want to keep in school. And after doing nothing for an entire summer and half of the school year, I wanted to have a school and I wanted to have the things I loved. So I put one on, and then as school went on past Christmas, they eventually brought us back to full-time school, still requiring masks. And in all honesty, they were not enforcing the masks whatsoever.
When you say not enforcing, you're in a class of 30 students, peers. You're in the hallways of the school. You're in the cafeteria. When you say not enforcing it, what did that look like exactly? To your left, to your right, in front of you, and behind you?
Almost every single student had their mask below their nose, below their chin. Some kids didn't even have them on. And the teacher said nothing to us. They didn't care. Some teachers left it below their chin. Most students stopped caring about the mask. And the thing that interested me was at the end of last year, everybody was saying, we just had to make it to the end of the year, and we did it. Next year is going to be better. And all summer, nobody wore a mask. And all of a sudden, we came back to school, and everybody wanted masks again. When in reality, no numbers had changed with cases and deaths. Nothing had changed. Nobody's attitude changed.
The percentages hadn't changed for the most part.
Right.
Okay. When you now roll forward, you're in the last 30 days. What went through your mind? What was your state of mind with respect to the mask mandate that was initiated September 4th, roughly on or about September 4th, 2021?
Let's see. The first 2 weeks of school, there was no mandate, and everybody was fine with it. There was so many kids that didn't even wear them. Nobody cared. Everybody was so happy to be back. And then the second that mandate hit, everybody...
School start in August?
Yeah.
Okay.
As everybody kind of just got really quiet and school got really tense. Kids started putting them on, and then for that entire first week of the mandate, it was not enforced. So
did you wonder before school started did you go through summer vacation? Did you go through that period of time wondering if you'd have to wear a mask again or you'd be called up to do so?
Yeah, it was very stressful to wait to find out if they were going to require it for all of us. And then when they did, it was really frustrating, not just for me, but for a lot of parents and a lot of students. And immediately, a lot of students just started pushing. Like, they didn't make it obvious. They didn't make a statement. They weren't loud about it. But every student started just seeing how far they could take it. Walking through the halls, I could see.
When you say pushing it, seeing how far they could take it,
yeah.
What did that look like? What was that visually?
Walking through the halls, I could see kids holding masks in their hands and sticking it in their pocket. They were ready to put it on if asked, but kids were taking them off to see when they would be asked to put it on. And for 3 weeks, just about 3 weeks, it was not enforced. Nobody made the kids put on masks.
Okay, so then the school board meets. There's an hour public comment taken from those at the Laramie High Auditorium, and then the about roughly the same amount of time, if not longer, was afforded people from online digital contribution format, and that extended I think the vote was 6-3 in favor of the mask mandate by the Albany County School District officials. Incidentally, I visited the district office and had opportunity to seek comment with Sean O'Sullivan, communications specialist at Albany County School District number 1, located on 1948 Grand Avenue in Laramie, Wyoming. And the Albany County comment was one which was essentially red, and it was indicative of the lockdown. Well, actually, everything escalated to a lockdown, but that lockdown, one parent accounted that they had initially heard that there was a bear sighting, and that was one initial witness's account for the lockdown. The email is read by Sean O'Sullivan to myself, yet to receive that on KOCA 93.5 FM at gmail.com. Yet to receive that. I don't have it available to read here on the show immediately. But the lockdown was really truly because you had not only been suspended for, how many times had you been suspended leading up to the day you were arrested?
Let's see. The day I was arrested, my third suspension was issued.
Yeah.
And each suspension.
2-day suspension?
Yep, 2-day suspensions. And they told me they will not go further than 2 days at a time. And the principal can only issue up to 10 days of suspension. So I can do this 5 times before the next step would be expulsion.
Okay. How do you feel about that process?
I think it's a very interesting way of going about it. I don't see why they continue to just give me 2-day suspensions when they could just give me 1 10-day suspension and then go straight to expulsion, because if I'm really that big of a problem to them, they would have just given me a longer suspension. But to me, it almost seems like they're trying to make an example of me, and that's why they continue to re-suspend me in such a short amount of time.
Now, I watched maybe 9 videos related to your situation in Laramie, Wyoming, and you talk about feeling like you were being made an example of. Did I quote you right?
Yeah.
Did you witness other students, anyone in the school not wearing masks such as you?
Oh yes, there's
How many?
probably about half the school is wearing them at least below their chin. I'd say about a little less than a quarter of the school doesn't have them on whatsoever.
Okay.
And so
are the remaining what?
Well, I think it's important to clarify just a little bit that I think that that's changing.
Yeah.
Now that they're pushing.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Let me break a moment before we go forward, and again, I thank you for sharing your story. Our audience is the Talk Shop on KOCA 93.5 FM, and this morning's opportunity is one to have awareness direct from those living it. Andy, your daughter's been suspended.
yes.
The first time. Normally, being suspended makes you feel a certain way. How did this feel? What was your state of mind as your daughter was suspended the first time for not wearing a mask under the mask mandate of Albany County School District?
Yeah, so when Grace came to us and being the first time that I've spoken this morning about my daughter, she's an incredible young lady. She's extremely hard-headed and very difficult to raise. But
for those that think that I might have been unfair, I gotta speak to that directly, Andy. One of the things that I witnessed through all the videos is Grace genuinely, essentially silent. So as an onlooker, not a family member, in 10 years I've probably seen you a couple times, and through my career in radio, I have worked with you, but I've never met you, Grace, have I?
no.
And in any event, I wanted to hear so much from you, Grace, and hearing you speak is very important, I think, to myself and to many listeners as well. I also gather it's genuinely heartfelt important to you, Andy, that this is Grace's choice, and this is Grace's choice with your support.
That's correct. So Grace had made it very clear to her peers and to her teacher from the beginning of the school year, and I emphasize her peers and her teachers because she did not tell her mother or I what she was doing, that she was not going to put on a mask. Under any circumstances, she was not going to put on a mask. And she made that very evident and very clear from the beginning of the year, and to the point where after the mandate, which it's not a mandate, it's a policy, was enforced by our school board, she organized an event at the Laramie High School to correlate with a national walkout in opposition of the mask policy. And so Grace ended up being an instrumental piece, if not the instrumental piece, at the Laramie High School to rally kids to get behind standing on their rights to choose whether or not to wear the mask. And I had to read about it in the paper.
You're kidding.
So that's just to kind of let everybody know what this girl.
Is that right, Grace? Is that for real?
Yeah.
Surprise the old pops, did you?
Yeah, I got kicked out of the school. I wasn't even suspended. They just told me I wasn't allowed back in until I had an exemption form. And I called my dad and told him that. And then I forgot to call him again to tell him that I wasn't going to bring the paperwork to him. Next thing I know, I'm getting a call about 3 hours later saying, "Where are you? Where's my paperwork?" And I brought it to him. And then I continued to forget to tell him that I was protesting. And then I came home that night and said,
how do you forget?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I was just so, that day was so busy, and I had like 80 kids that I was watching, and I was just.
So you felt responsibility with respect to your peers that were participating in this with you?
A little bit, yeah.
You say you're looking after them. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say, I guess, not necessarily looking after. I was more leading them. And I just felt like it was my responsibility to stay there the whole time in the 90-degree heat and be a huge support to everybody that came out. I felt like it was more my job to keep everybody's attitude positive while we were there, because people were not being positive to us, and I think that a huge part of what we were doing was to show respect, and so I think it was really important for me to just be there as a light. And
Did you have any academic teacher support with respect to your walkout? What was their spoken vantage point, or did they physically attend the walkout with you? Any of them?
No teachers came. I can tell that some teachers are supportive, and some teachers have pulled me aside to quietly tell me that they're supporting me, but teachers have been threatened to be fired and lose their jobs if.
Did you hear that? Did you witness that?
I know a girl whose mom works at the school, and her mom was threatened to be fired if her daughter participated in the walkout, and teachers are being targeted like that. But teachers are not being targeted if they're saying discriminatory and terrible things to the kids who aren't wearing masks. If teachers are supporting masks, they can say whatever they want, and administration does not care. But if teachers even try to support their kids in not wearing a mask, they could lose their jobs.
Now, in my conversation with Sean O'Sullivan of the Albany County School District, I wasn't able to gain any other comment regarding that. So it's important what you were witness to and what you've gathered hearsay from your friends and so forth. You were not directly in witness of a teacher's job being threatened. Is that correct?
No, not direct.
But indirectly, you have heard via other students that their family is concerned that way. Okay, great. Not great, but Andy, carry forward if you would.
Sure. So Grace came to us, and after witnessing what had transpired at the school with the walkout and her passion behind rallying some kids, her mother and I talked with her about her choice and what she wanted to do, and she made it very clear that she wants to go to school and not wear a mask. So we did fill out their exemption request form, which was later revoked by the superintendent of schools.
How long did that take to review and for the revoke?
So initially they were allowing parents to choose for their kids the right to wear a mask, and they had an exemption form that a lot of parents filled out so their kids wouldn't have to wear a mask. And
do I understand right, the initial exemption request form was kind of not honored throughout the entire school year, but there was a new exemption form required at the point where the mask initiation, the mask initiative in September was launched till September 10th.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So we did sign that exemption form, and then that was later revoked by the superintendent. There was an email that went out to all of LHS parents and staff notifying that they would no longer be honoring those exemption forms, and that if you wanted to have an exemption, you needed to submit a request for exemption to the superintendent. He would be the individual to review your request. And then they listed, which I don't have with me, but they listed 8 examples that they would approve for a mask exemption. And to simply summarize what those 8 examples look like, none of them applied to Grace, and they applied to kids that mostly did not have the ability or the control to put on or take off the mask themselves. So religious exemption or parental exemptions were not included on that list at all. So we looked at this situation right away, started to contact local officials and just to try to get a handle on what was going on, because before we ever thought about fighting anything, we needed to know where we stand and whether or not they had any legal grounds for their policy to begin with. And I told Grace that until we know that, we don't know where we stand and on what leg we stand on. And
Grace, did you feel a part of that through what your dad's speaking of?
Yeah, I went to every meeting. I've been present for everything, meetings with Sheriff and Dr. Yenny and other police officers. I've been at every single meeting.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we have a meeting this morning with the sheriff. We haven't met with the sheriff yet.
Okay.
We've met with the police chief, the lieutenant who oversees the school resource officers. We've met with the school resource officers. We've met with Superintendent Yenny on a couple of occasions, the principal of the high school. We've met or been in communication with the chairman of the board here at Albany County School District. But we started the process by looking into the legal grounds for their request or their policy. And I believe our first phone call was to the governor's office, asking the governor's office if they could please show us where in Wyoming statute that these boards have the authority to mandate masks. And they quickly referred us down the line. So the governor's office referred us to the State Board of Health. We called the State Board of Health, who referred us to the state school board. So we called the state school board. They quickly referred us locally. They said, we can't help you, you need to talk to your local people. So we called the local, so that would be Albany County Health Department, and we called them, and then it referred us back to, Big Circle goes back to the school board. So all powers lead all the way back down to our local school board. And we were asking, can anybody please show us where there is a mandate in effect, or where there is a statute or law that gives the school board the authority to enforce a mask policy on our kids. And nobody had an answer for us. In fact, everywhere we went, the answer was no, they don't have the authority to do so. And so when the governor's state of emergency was lifted months and months ago, after it had seen its final phase, after it had been extended and everything, all mandates were released. And so that, I believe, is very important for people to know, if they don't know that everything that has come from either the state or local health department are recommendations only. These are not mandates. Those have long since expired. And the only way that a mask mandate can be in effect is if a state of emergency is issued by our governor, which would then grant the authority to the state health department under Title 35 to act on those mandates, or to issue mandates based on their view of what is the best health recommendations for their community. So that's what has transpired as far as where we've gotten all the way back down to the school board.
Sure. As you entered this morning into Studio 255 at the Laramie Plains Civic Center, I asked that you listen to me play a clip that's available on YouTube of the Vidalia School District meeting, where an individual spoke very passionately, seemingly quite educated, about wearing masks, the dangers of, the lack of choice with respect to that, and perhaps the motivation driving the decision to essentially force students and faculty to mask up in that community, Vidalia, Illinois. Do you have any thoughts or observations in comparison of what you heard on that clip to your situation? Any similarities?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I don't know when that clip took place. That would
Sure.
be the question, because I know that when these health orders were put into effect, I think they started what was called Wyoming Cares Act or something like that, and certain monies were issued all around the state to help with PPE, funding and things like that for individual schools and stuff. So I don't know how much of that money is still being allocated to schools, or
Certainly hasn't been spoke of. I attended Albany County School District public hearing where public comment was taken early September, and the vote was 6-3 to push the extension of the Mask Up initiative to September 10th. And then during that course, they felt that the school district board had more time to take public comment and what have you, and the importance of this was believed absolutely by at least a few convincingly persuasive board members, and Perea was one that just kept bringing it up and did prevail to have the extension of time before the extension of the mask initiative to October 15th. So amidst all of that, what was the date of your first suspension from school for disciplinary reasons? And what did they term that language to you? What language did they use, Grace? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was September 30th, and
it was willful disobedience.
Yeah, it was continued willful disobedience to school safety measures or something like that. And it was weird, because at first my first response was, okay, I'm going back to class. It's stupid. Well, then the school resource officers came in and they explained to me, if you continue to try to go to class, we'll give you a citation, and then we'll put the school on lockdown. And on that day, our goal was to get an answer from the police, because everybody that we had talked to at that point talked in circles, and we wanted to know if the police actually had a plan or if they were just trying to scare us.
Did they speak to you privately with those resource teachers or what have you at the school, or did they pull you aside and or did they speak to you right in front of the other classmates?
No, they spoke to me in the front office.
Okay.
Because they called me down to the front office to
Yeah,
suspend me. And then we got on video. They were very clear and concise about what they were going to do, and then I went home because I didn't want a trespassing citation.
Before you go to being home,
yeah.
In your class, before you left, how many students in your classroom that you left when they called you to the office were not masked up?
At least 5.
5 of how, a class of how many roughly?
Probably 20 to 30 students, because it was a theater class. So some kids were in the shop in tech, and
were the 5 that also were not masked, were they socially distant? Were they 6 feet or more?
No.
From any other 3 feet or more from anybody else?
Nope, it was a dance day, so we were really close to each other, and
Okay.
I don't know about. There was probably about 30 in total, and about 15 were back in the shop doing like they're sawing things and putting wood together that day, and so I don't. Back there, they don't wear their masks because it's a safety hazard.
Okay.
So I don't know if they were social distance, but in the actual theater, there was about 15 of us, and 5 did not have masks.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that information, because what I want to know is that administrators are not arbitrary, and they're not simply being capricious to you over any other student, amidst any other student, or any other individual. As I watched the video, one of the videos clearly showed at least one individual unmasked, and it was in the front office video where at one point you guys weren't alone. I zoomed in again to verify that my eyes weren't deceiving me, because no one was speaking to that individual. No one. Even while law enforcement were in that vicinity, their focus was you. Mm-hmm. Their focus was exclusively tuned to you. No other administrative personnel, no secretary, no adult, taller individual of note, bar no one in your video capture was represented speaking to that individual that I witnessed in that video on or about the last few days that was videotaped, right? Yeah. Does my account of that video, is that any surprise to you, or is that
no.
Is that what you saw?
Yeah, there's so many kids without masks.
Okay, but you have video
yeah.
of that individual not having a mask, and in the vicinity of everything, I would have thought a major uproar would have been made.
Well, the hypocrisy of everything that's going on is unbelievable. I mean, and it's not just that video. There's several videos, including one video where Grace was being detained and not allowed back to class yesterday. You can see kids in the background walking into the hallway with masks below their chin.
Well,
so the double standard has been unbelievable. But to clarify, I think it's important to clarify that I believe that Grace is being targeted specifically because she has made her stance clear. She's not been vocal about it. She's not going to school every day, ranting and raving down the hallway or anything.
Do you ever raise your voice, Grace? Do you ever raise your voice? Do you get loud?
No.
Because you're so even keel. You're just calm and you're really reasonable. There's no threatening hostility. There's no barely any bitterness, actually. I can't even take any inflection or tone. I'll let the audience judge for themselves, but I don't hear it. I don't see it.
Yeah.
And all I see is a genuine, your punishment extends to this show. We bring you in at 7 o'clock in the morning on a day you don't have to go to school, right? I mean, you've been granted the S pass, the suspension pass, right? And now the T. You've been given the big T. Trespass, arrested for trespass, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did it feel to be arrested?
Oh, it was
2 suspensions?
Yeah, 3.
3,
yeah.
and upon refusal to comply, you spoke and you stood for your rights. And in the video where the officer asks you if you have any bazookas on you, amongst other items, and the officer's tone was certainly, I think, friendly and in that regard and respectful of you. I think he was trying to genuinely soften the experience for you. What did it feel like?
Honestly, I've been mentally preparing myself for this day for a long time. I've chosen to not raise my voice ever. I inside, I mean, yes, it's so angering to see that they're treating me like this, and it frustrates me that that they could start treating other students like this. And in one way, I am grateful that I'm the one that this is happening to, because I can be loud and I'm not afraid to be expelled. But it does hurt my heart to know that there's a huge chance that other students, that this could happen and will happen to other students. But on that same note, it gives me a little bit of hope, because if they're making an example out of me and I keep pushing, then they're going to have to start doing it to other students, and then I don't think that they're going to do that. And I think that that could be our gateway into this all stopping. But being arrested, I mean, I never saw myself sitting in the back of a cop car with handcuffs. I've never broken the law. I never saw myself sitting in the back of a cop car, especially for something that I didn't even do. Like for something that was so.
Do you feel like you broke the law?
I mean, no.
Do you feel
honestly.
like you trespassed on school grounds?
I
given the lingo that has been thrown and shown to you and everything else, do you feel like you broke any rule that do you feel like your rights have been broken?
Yes, I feel like my rights have been invaded and they've been taken away from me. And
what's your biggest issue? What is the absolute biggest issue that you have, if you could state it in a sentence? What is it? God
gave me rights the day that I was born as a human being, especially in the state or in the country of the United States of America. And these people that work for the school district, who have very limited power, are taking away my God-given rights. They don't have as much power as so many other people. And we are a people-led country, and that's what we're supposed to be. And these administrators and this school district board is taking away my rights. And they honestly don't have any right to do that, because they have no power whatsoever, except to their job is to make sure that I get to go to school. Really, all they do is meet so that I can go to school, and they're taking so much more power than they actually have, and more power than they actually deserve, and people are letting them do that. And that's what frustrates me and angers me the most, is because they're stealing power from the people, they're stealing power from their higher authorities, and they're stealing power from students.
So what's your conclusion in all of this?
My conclusion? I mean, we've ended...
You're in the middle of it. I know
Yeah.
it's not in, but honest to goodness, what conclusion, what do you want to be able to do? What are you doing this for? What are you, why don't you just mask up?
Because
why don't you just comply?
I want to fight for...
Why don't you just do what you're told?
Because I want to fight for every single...
Look at me when I'm talking to you, right? I mean,
and
right? Isn't that how you feel?
Yeah, I feel like I want to fight for every single parent and child and future parent and future child who deserves the rights that I was supposedly born with. I have a hard time believing as a 16-year-old that I was actually born with these rights, and I don't want a single child to feel what I'm feeling anymore. And I want every single kid to be able to make this decision on their own, and I want every parent to feel like that it's their child. Because, I mean, you can testify for this, Dad, but I feel like every parent is feeling like this school board is taking away their children.
Did you take the opportunity personally to speak at the prior public meetings or in that period of time? And if so, please tell me about that. And if not, tell me why not.
No, because at first I wasn't sure how vocal I wanted to be. And
it was a school night,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You had schoolwork to do.
Yeah, and I've spent every day has been a process, and we think, and all we do is talk about this, because it's a day-by-day process. And I have not spoken at any public school board meetings or anything like that, because I wanted to slowly push it to see how far it would take me to, how far they would let me go before they would make this all stop.
And you did that because nobody was listening.
Yeah.
You weren't being heard. Your American liberties were not being respected to make a choice for you, and your parents' support of you. They're raising you until you're legal age, 18 or older. They're responsible for you.
Yeah.
You get cited in some jurisdictions. They get cited.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah, so I mean, I do want to just let your audience know too that these meetings were happening as we were learning. It's taken a lot of phone calls and a lot of time, and we would spend a little bit of time here or there. When I say we, I mean there were phone calls made to these entities from different members of my family. My brother has been an integral part in contacting the governor's office, and my dad and some of our family friends, just trying to gather information. And we have witnessed in on these board, or listened in on these board meetings and heard parents' complaints and what was going on. And
so you did view that.
We did view.
Okay. Did you
Yeah.
attend the auditorium, or did you just watch online?
We just watched.
Did you watch the auditorium comments in addition to the online comment period?
Correct.
Took us into 11:30 midnight.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the
I was on that
disruption
one.
and all that. So
Okay.
Now, because of what we have learned through this process and seeing the parent complaints and stuff, there was a lot of comments and maybe not even arguments, but statements and comments made to the school board about the masks, their medical use, the efficacy of the mask, the coronavirus, all that stuff. And we realized very quickly that that was not going to be an approach. That was not going to be our approach to this. There's nothing to be gained by trying to point out scientific studies about any of that. The school board had made their decision. We believe based on fear and based on an idea that they needed to follow a recommendation from the county health department on quarantining kids for 14 days. So they made their decision to enact their policy to try to keep kids in school, because if kids were popping positive for COVID, then whole classrooms, whole schools, and if anybody's been paying attention to what's going on around the state, there's been school districts all over the place with hundreds and hundreds of kids being quarantined at home because one kid gets COVID because they're not wearing masks or they're not doing the recommended things. But these are not mandates. These are only recommendations, and they have no way to enforce their quarantines or their mandates. And so we became empowered by learning this information, and that's where we have gone as far as right now. So the other thing I want to make a note of is that every step of the way, before every suspension has taken place or any act of discipline on Grace's behalf, we have informed those in authority that they are in egregious violation of her constitutional rights afforded to her by the Constitution of the state of Wyoming under Article 1, Section 38, which is the right of the health care. And every step of the way, every single time, when we have informed them that they are getting ready to infringe upon Grace's constitutional right, and that could indicate them in a lawsuit independent of the school district, because they themselves are the ones standing in the way of her rights, they all did not care. And when I say every single one, I mean every single one and every single time. And that means every single law enforcement officer, every single principal, every single, or the superintendent of schools. We have spoken to the lieutenant, like I said, informed them of her rights, and we have spoken to the chief of police, informed him of her rights, and they all do not care.
When you say that they don't care, what I watched, I saw some evidence of care. There's certainly some instances where the meeting with the lieutenant, for instance, it was clear that his position wasn't going to change, and in that I agree, there was no care.
Right.
There was no care to change individually outside of their instruction, their orders, their mandate, their dictation, whatever,
Yeah, and maybe
whatever
saying,
it was.
yeah.
So I would only agree in that what I witnessed was, I went so far as to witness and make note of how many individuals chose not to wear a mask when they were not in the facility of the school. Okay, I went so far as to make note, and there were some on law enforcement, and I'm a son of a career policeman. I do not disrespect and I hold great regard for what they're challenged to do without a lot of love in many communities across America, especially in the last few years. This is a moment where I'm so glad you were able to come in, share your story, share some perspectives. I can't imagine what I would feel like to have my son or daughter, 16 years old, arrested from their school, packed into a squad car of your local city police, and taken to a detention center. In this case, the Albany County Detention Center. You weren't cuffed behind your back, but you were still cuffed.
Yeah.
What the cuffs feel like? That's an experience that most of you, I mean, when somebody gets arrested, I grew up, I was in trouble. I got to tell you, young lady, I think that you are, regardless of what the outcome is, you're a champion for choice. You're a champion for your individual right, and I think it's amazing that you have inside of you, and until I met with you today, this morning, I can't genuinely say that I didn't believe that there was inducement, because when I was witness at the school district's public hearing, I witnessed what I felt was unbelievable coaching, clear coaching, clear drive by the parent. And Andy Smith, I can honestly say witness to you this morning, and you're calm and you're collected, just like your daughter. It's clear to see that she gets that from parents, and respect is genuinely part of this in many regards. Maybe there may be in some places in the videos where I would characterize some of the moments as just awkward. There were just some awkward moments where awkward laughter was, or awkward editorial commenting and so forth may have existed through some of the videos. But genuinely, guys, I respect your heart, your character, all your candor, your commitment, and young lady, your confidence as a leader. You led a group of young students, peers, outside on a walkout, on a national walkout day, for this very reason, that you don't want to wear a mask, you want your choice. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I've heard it said by people that I've interviewed that that group, you had people throwing garbage at you, throwing water at you, throwing and insulting you with verbal abuse. Is that right? Is that for real?
Yes. I think the worst one, I got hit in the head with a baseball.
From a car or what?
No, it was my first day. So Thursday, I got kicked out. Friday was the walkout. So that Thursday, I was alone protesting outside the school. I just had a sign that said no more masks, and I had a few people filter in and out throughout the day who held masks or held posters that said other things like join our protest or anything, just other kids that had gotten kicked out. And that day, kids were really, really upset.
So some other students have been suspended?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To your knowledge, how many?
Grace was informed that as of Tuesday morning, that was Tuesday of this week, 4 total kids had been suspended for not wearing a mask. And they had initiated a plan where they were going to send two informed letters to the parents of kids not wearing masks. So they're taking roll call in each class, and the teachers are supposed to write down which kids are not wearing masks. And then those parents are getting informed with 2 letters about not wearing masks, and then if they still are not complying, then they will meet with the principal and can face suspension at that point. So the principal had told Grace that he thought that by the end of this week, that number would maybe double or triple, but we don't know. And they obviously, because
did you feel like that was a promise for intimidation? Did you feel like it was a promise or just an informative comment? How did you view that?
More of just an informative comment.
Okay.
And I honestly believe that they don't know. They don't know how many kids are going to suspend, which makes me believe more that they're making an example of me, because they make it seem like they have a plan and they know what they're doing. But after sitting in that office so many times with all these different administrators and with the police, they honestly are lost. They don't know what to do.
Well, and understandably, I don't know if anybody's been through exactly this, but I say that before I remind everybody that the U.S. Constitution has been the same for more than 100 years. And there's plenty of precedent where people they fought for and died for the right to choose. Not long ago, in the 70s, perhaps, Supreme Court decisions supporting my body, my choice. How different do you see this topic and that Supreme Court precedent? My body, my choice.
I would say 0, but Grace, you can.
Yeah, I see zero
Zero
relation between the two, because
okay.
that, I feel like that's a whole other argument. This is quote unquote my body, my choice, but really it's not about that. It's more about my rights, my parents' choice, not my body, my choice.
So even when I bait you, if you will, your convictions are strong, young lady.
Yeah.
You're on center with why you are doing this, and I think that that's the most beautiful thing of everything. I would say, for somebody to be arrested, this is civil disobedience, and you're civil about it beyond compare. I think that given what you're enduring, given the number of days that the very people who you rely on to educate you are punishing you and saying, we're not going to teach you. And you're at a point where, if you will, we're not going to take it. And you're backed in a corner to where your only recourse is to get a decision. And this is the point where I do feel that the lieutenant at Laramie, City of Laramie Police Department absolutely did care, because they want a decision too.
Well, I agree. I think that almost in a weird way, they kind of wanted to see how far it was all going to get pushed. And so I do want to clarify, based on my earlier statement about our interactions with the law enforcement, have all been very positive, and we stand with them too. They've been put in a really tough situation. However,
as you say that,
I do want to clarify something, that we feel that there's nobody to represent Grace in this except her parents and herself. And when law enforcement was challenged with an opportunity to represent Grace, they denied that opportunity. And they did it under the pretense that they are adhering to the law of trespass, which they had the authority to issue based on her suspension. And they're not there to determine whether her suspension is lawful or unlawful. They are there just to enforce the suspension. And so
the video I witnessed was consistent with that. I think that's definitely the area they're residing in.
Right. And I can
yet
appreciate that side. However, we informed them of the Constitution. We informed them of Article 1, Section 38, subsection D, Delta, which
feel free to highlight it.
Yeah, which states the state of Wyoming shall act to preserve these rights from undue governmental infringement. So we pointed that out to law enforcement, that we feel that they had an obligation to step in because government was infringing on my daughter's rights granted to her in the Wyoming State Constitution. And they said, we're not here for that. That would have to be decided in court. And I just want to point out that through this process, I feel like the tables are reversed of the way that they should be. Grace being denied her right to an education should have impelled the officers to stand in on her behalf and demand that she be returned to class. So I just want to point that out, that was a possibility. The police could have showed up and said, she needs to go to class, and you're going to make us enforce a policy rule that's going to make her tardy. And this is a young lady that just wants to go to school. And
what's your attendance record before your suspensions? 9 out of
good.
10, 90% there,
I mean,
99,
yeah,
90.
I've had a few like 2-minute tardies. Other than that,
Shame on you.
Well, she got
What were you doing?
She got her driver's license, so
Okay,
she's,
all right.
she's learning responsibility, and that means learning how to be on time.
Yeah,
I couldn't find a parking space. I ran out of gas, huh? Got some excuses for being late?
Yeah, but it's not not a common thing.
I understand. I sat there wondering why, when you showed the officers the Constitution, there wasn't. I really wish that they had championed for you, but in the absence of that, we're in a world that is not what it used to be.
Well, I find it interesting, we have a video with Dale Stalder, who we love. He's the chief of police, a super nice guy, but we have him on recording yesterday when asked about their oath to the U.S. Constitution. He says that we don't take an oath to the Constitution. We take an oath to defend the laws of the state, the laws of the county, and the laws of the municipal. And so that's a very scary statement. In my opinion, that means that whatever law is ever issued, whether it be legal or not, whether it be constitutional or not, they are obligated to enforce these laws. And that should really be appalling to a lot of people to think that law enforcement, which is supposed to be on our side, could be enforcing unconstitutional laws.
What's it feel like to have that sentiment? What's it feel like to have that absence of agreement with Chief Stalder?
It's
administrators like Dr. Jenny, who's a doctor of education, I presume, and lacks any medical doctorate.
Yeah, Yenny's a different subject, but
right,
because Dale Stalder has been polite and courteous, and the chief of police and even the officers might feel differently personally about these matters, but the chief of police is answering matter-of-factly because he has to. And so they may feel differently, but it's been just appalling to me. Like I said, where is Grace's advocate? Who in the system is there for Grace? Who wants to see her succeed? Who wants to defend her civil liberties? And every step of the way, every turn, either somebody wanted to wash their hands of it, didn't want to take any part of it, or just blatantly said they don't care.
The state has attorneys that guardian ad litem represent the interests of many children under the age of 18. No one contacted you to help guide you through some of this?
No, in fact, we had, when all this stuff was going down, and they were starting to issue the suspensions or talking about issuing suspensions and writing these letters of threat to us, we started reaching out to find legal help. And it was amazing to me, the countless phone calls that I made to different law firms across the state of Wyoming.
100% of them return your call? And
I would get either no callbacks, or I would get immediately turned away from receptionists when I was inquiring about the civil matter of my phone call. I even had, as far as to calling one law firm that told me, you need to call a Republican law office, as if somebody's civil liberties...
I never have seen them advertised that way, as a matter of fact.
I know. As if somebody's civil liberties are politically affiliated. It's unbelievable. And it's taken a lot of time, but we finally landed with Cassie Craven with Longhorn Law Firm, who is involved with a lot of these cases across the state and has already filed suit with Laramie County School
23 counties in the state of Wyoming, and obviously the one you care most about is Albany County. But you're standing tall for an issue that affects everybody. So as a 16-year-old, I can only thank you for standing tall. You, whether you know it or not, you represent us all. Those that agree, those that disagree. And absent anyone else, you got arrested, no one else. And it's not a badge of courage normally, but in your case, I'm quite respectful.
Thank you.
Of your grit. You got salt, young lady. You got
Thank
salt,
you.
and you got it. And I don't, like I said, my father, rest his soul, peace officer for more than 20 years in the state of Wyoming, 9 in Virginia. I'm very respectful of what you've done.
So
as we go on, Andy, I've asked you precious little. Please share more before we close out this segment.
Yeah, so in closing, a couple of things. We understand that this fight is not Grace's alone. She's not doing this just for her own civil liberties, but the civil liberties of every child and parent in the state of Wyoming. Mm-hmm. And so even if you stand on the other side of the use of the mask, we were asking people to respect Grace's position and appreciate that she's fighting for civil liberties way beyond the choice of a mask. And we are at the brink of losing the very things that we have been awarded to us by our Constitution if we don't stand now. And so that's what this is about, and that's what the fight is about. And so we hope people can respect that. And so we have started a GoFundMe page, and it is called Stand with Grace. And we are trying to raise money to help fund not only her legal costs, because this is going to go to litigation, and it's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars to make before we can get a decision on the matter. And we hope that other kids can get on board. And so any money raised will not only go to assist Grace in her legal costs, but also legal costs of any kid in the state that is fighting these same battles to maintain their individual rights to choose their own personal health choices. So that's GoFundMe, and that is Stand With Grace. And we have been living based on a statement, a motto, if you will, a reference to a quote from Benjamin Franklin, which states, "Those willing to give up liberty for a little safety deserve neither liberty or safety." And so that's where we're at.
I'm Eric Henderson with Grace Smith, Andy Smith, and you listeners. We appreciate you listening. This has been the Talk Shop on KOCA 93.5 FM in Laramie, Wyoming. Grace, any last comment?
Not really, no.
Appreciate your time, young lady. Thanks for coming to see us this morning.